Hello, and thank you for joining us for the Family Follow-Up. In this edition, we're going to focus on academics and how to support your student in their academic pursuits here at the university. My name is Jimmy Jones, and I'm a senior program specialist here at the University of Kentucky. I work primarily with our first-generation students in our first-generation student advising office. I'll allow my colleague to also introduce herself.
Hi, and I'm Dr. Martina Martin, Associate Director of Student Transitions and Family Programs, and I too work very closely with our first-generation students at the University of Kentucky.
So jumping right into the information that's very pertinent for your student to know, we'll cover a lot of things such as types of advisors, advising ins and outs, ways for your students to prepare for their academic advising appointments, as well as other various appointments, resources on campus, what academics truly look like in regards to their planning of their degree progression, and other things like that throughout this presentation. And so please let us know if you have any questions at the end. So, advisors. The university utilizes an advising system that kind of is a broad span. And so we have various types of advisors. Some students in colleges may have an academic or faculty advisor. And so they may be with an academic advisor, a professional staff member, and then go and transition to a faculty advisor for the last few years, the last year of their program. Or some students may stay with an academic advisor the whole time. Regardless, students will have an advisor and have someone to walk them through their process throughout their time here at the university. And so they are not left alone to navigate this big system on their own. Additionally to that, we also have programmatic advisors and or secondary advisors. So our students such as who may be in honors, our students who may also be tied to a scholarship program, but who also may just apply for an office, to be a part of an office such as SSS, or even being a part of our office as a student that we support. Our students can definitely come in and meet with us, and we kind of work as a complementary system to the academic advising system. And so we're also an additional person in that support network. And lastly, we have, of course, scholarship advisors. And as I mentioned earlier, we have students who are tied to a specific scholarship who may have a specific scholarship advisor. And so not every student will have that. And so letting the student know that they may see various advisors assigned to them. You can definitely see that in a couple of slides here. I'll show you an example of what that truly looks like. But yeah. So on the next slide here, as you can see, advising assignments. So as a student logs into this page through the MyUK portal, this is what they land on in the MyUK GPS system. And I'll talk about what that is in a little bit. But as you can see in the red circle there, My Advisors, that's what your student will see as they are enrolled at the university. And so going in order here, this student has clearly 3 advisors listed. So which one is truly that student's advisor, right? Well, for all intents and purposes, all of them are their advisor. All of them are their student's advisor. However, they all have different aspects. So in this instance, the first name there is the student's academic advisor. The second name there is the student's honors advisor. And the third name is my name. I'm the student's scholarship advisor. So this is just an example of what your student may see when they log into MyUK GPS and want to know who their advisors are. Listed also is the advisor's email address, as you can see. So it's very important that your student knows how to contact their advisor and also where their office is located. Additionally, you'll see a student's financial aid counselor. Every student at the university is assigned a financial aid counselor. We want to make sure that students have a go-to person to ask their questions in regards to their finances as well as their academics. So at the university, we try to make sure that everyone is assigned. If for some reason a student doesn't have an advisor listed, definitely want to encourage that student to get in touch with their college home of their major and see what is the process of labeling or tagging an advisor to that student or assigning an advisor to that student. So as a student prepares to meet for their advising appointment. So some colleges in some areas require students to meet with their advisor on several occasions. Sometimes it's once a semester, sometimes it's multiple times a semester. and for various reasons. Sometimes it's for an initial appointment, sometimes it's for specifically for advising in regards to course registration and things like that. But here are some helpful tips for your student when it comes to their advising meeting in particular. And we say advising meeting, we're referring to the time in which a student is preparing to register for courses for the next semester. Students will typically register for courses in the next semester just about midway through the current semester. So for example, a student will register for their spring term classes in about the mid to late October time frame on a typical schedule, unlike this year, where we're currently in a pandemic, and so that is a little bit altered with the university calendar. But however, students will typically register typically plan to register around October into November, and then in the spring semester, they would register for the fall classes in that manner. And so just some helpful tips for a student. As I said earlier, making sure the student knows how to locate their advisor's name. So you know how to now assist your student in figuring out where their advisor should be located. And so that's one thing that the student should definitely know how to access. And so if the student does run into issues, you can now definitely assist them with that. Know where their office is located. It is always helpful if a student has not met that advisor yet to definitely make sure they send them an email prior to their meeting and check in and see where exactly is that office located. It's very important to know where the student's going because the student will only have a select block of time to meet with that advisor through their appointment. And so unfortunately, sometimes when students are either too late for their appointment or get completely lost, they may miss their appointment. And unfortunately, that does happen here at the university because it is a large university. And so we definitely encourage students to be prepared and know where they're going before they start to go on their journey for their advising meeting. Also encouraging students to show up on time. It's very important. As I said earlier, the students have an allotted time period to meet with their advisor, and that's the time that's specifically dedicated to them. Unfortunately, sometimes if the student is too late for their appointment, they may not be able to have all their topics and questions answered or discussed. And so that kind of can seem like they're being rushed. And also, it also kind of rushes the advisor as well because they may not be able to think clearly and make sure they get all the information the student needs to them in a fashion that suits the student's needs as well. Also, it's very important for students to come prepared. And so what that looks like is coming with questions, coming with concerns, maybe with ideas in regards to maybe potential ways to enhance their education, whether that be studying abroad, internships, and things like that, and thinking about how that may be impacted into their career goals as well as their course of study at the university. And so that may look like them planning out a couple semesters and determining when that may fit best in their schedule. Also, asking for clarification. Definitely encourage students to ask clarification. A lot of times here in higher education, we use a lot of terms that just sound, make sense to us as folks who work at the university, but sometimes students who are not at the university, who are not employees, may be a little confused. And so I always encourage students, if you don't know what we're trying to say to you, or we may have put in a different term that you're not familiar with, always ask for clarification. It never hurts to ask, especially given the fact that this stuff needs to make sense to students because this is how they're going to determine their time of degree completion and all that stuff. So if a student is confused by a term or a process, I definitely encourage students to ask their advisor during their advising appointment. Some other tips. Encouraging your students to review the course catalog. And I'll talk about a little bit about the course catalog here in a little bit, but definitely looking at the course catalog, seeing what courses are offered. This is definitely very helpful, especially as students think about potentially planning out their semester term the semester prior and knowing when classes are offered. So for instance, some classes may be only offered in the fall, or maybe only offered in the spring, or maybe offered in the summer only. And so thinking about how that may impact their registration for the next semester is very important. So students can definitely start planning there and get a leg up. And that way it makes it a lot easier for the student to work with their advisor when they come in. And that leaves a little bit more room on the back end for questions and concerns that they have that are not specifically schedule related. Students should also review their major requirements in the course catalog academic bulletin. And so students can also see what is required for them in the course, in the academic bulletin. Each college is responsible for printing and sharing an academic bulletin with their students. And so what that looks like, I will show you here in a little bit, but that really kind of lays out all the requirements for a student's major, and what's expected from them from the university as well as from the college to achieve the degree requirements for that said degree. Definitely encourage students also to look up their degree audit to see how far they want to go. Students may think about adding additional classes and maybe taking more than 15 or 17 hours, or seeing maybe if they think that they can take a little lighter of a semester. Maybe they're thinking about taking on an additional responsibility or trying to take on additional job responsibilities, such as maybe having a job or a work study position, or potentially doing research or something like that. Next up, we're going to talk about FERPA. So FERPA is the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. So at the university, once a student has enrolled and registered for classes at the university, we now require the student sign a waiver to release information. And that's to protect the student as well as the university. And so you should not be alarmed if your student asks you to potentially sign a FERPA form, especially as it pertains to speaking with a college or financial institution at the university. So unfortunately, if you call the university, there's only a little bit of information we can share unless there's a FERPA form or waiver signed on our records here at the university. And so definitely encourage you and your student to have that conversation. If that's something that you want to be a part of, I would definitely encourage that. If that's something that does not interest you, then that is okay as well. But just to know that we have to have one of those on file in order to divulge specific information about the students' records and things like that. Unfortunately, that's a little bit different from how it was in high school in the K-12 system, as students would have a parent or guardian on file and they would just open freely and talk about things like that. Unfortunately, that's not the case because the student is looked at as an adult here at the university, and so we want to protect their privacy. So,
Jimmy, would you like to continue?
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Awesome. So right now we'd like to kind of shift gears a little bit and talk about some important terms here at the University of Kentucky. So the first three I want to share with you are the following. Course catalog, a catalog of all courses offered at the university. The academic bulletin, that is going to be a comprehensive, and when we say document, but more of an online document that actually walks through all of the university and specific college academic policies, such as degree requirements, probation standings, and suspension policies, and much more. And then we have My UK GPS. How does it sound like a GPS? Where are we going? This is actually going to be that student's guide, as it is the official registration and degree audit system for the University of Kentucky. What you see here is an example of the academic bulletin. For example, for the Bachelor of Science in Education with a major in health promotion, this is an example of all of the requirements, assessment, and information on core courses, or what may be referred to as general education type courses. All things related to the major itself and in also the minor. So the student may have options to major in a program, being primarily the major degree, and then also minor, taking a few courses related to a similar or different topic. All the hours required, the courses requirements, all those are listed in the academic bulletin. So that's why we suggest that students take a close look at this so they're aware of what's going on. Degree audit. This is a sample of a degree audit of one of our current students. Name has been blocked out per FERPA, but we just wanted to show you a glimpse of what your student will see when taking a view of their degree and what their audit is sharing with them. As you can see, it's like the academic bulletin, but laid out electronically, and the student can see their progression. So as this example shows, a Bachelor's of Arts, They also list all up to date when the courses were taken, university requirements, percentage of completion, and what we like to see are those green check marks. What has been completed versus the little red X's are those things that do need to be completed. So this helps the student identify what has been taken and what their current needs are. Another version of our My UK GPS also lists out some information, let's say post advising appointment meeting. So here we can see what a student's schedule will look like. The academic advisor's recommendations for a 15 credit hour semester. As you can see, the academic advisor for this student has suggested honors, history, political science, Spanish, and a statistics course. And at the bottom, you can start to see the beginnings of what an actual outline schedule could possibly look like for a student. Also, we can see the advisor's names and initials off to the far right-hand side under the added by, so we'll know who exactly that student met with and suggested those courses. So if there are any questions, the student will know who to follow back up with. Jimmy, would you like to talk about the academic calendar?
Sure. So our academic calendar here at the university is where a student can definitely go to, as well as family members to go to see what major academic requirements and or dates are very important. This was things such as graduation applications, registration windows, registration restrictions, major change restrictions, finals, midterms, and all kinds of such information. And so it's very important for families and students to definitely get acclimated with that, because you don't want to miss a date that may be important to your student. And so it's helpful for you to be able to remind them, as well as the student to know where to go to see that information too.
And I would also like to add, especially during this time of COVID-19, we have had some major changes to our calendar. So it's not like our typical academic year. So again, checking out the calendar is very, very important.
Next up here is our Common Hour exams.
So for our Common Hour exams, we have a sample calendar of what that may look like for your student based on last fall. So a Common Hour exam or exams offered for courses that are of large enrollment. So those that are seated in some of our large lecture halls, and multiple sections are offered to accommodate all of those students taking these courses. It's very difficult to offer an exam and then have those exams graded in a timely fashion if each individual class is taking that exam. So what the university has offered are block times where every student in that particular course will come together in one area to take that exam. However, due to COVID-19, the structure may be a little bit different. However, there will be some of those blocked times where the students will come together virtually or in designated locations across campus in order to take those exams. For example, listed here are biologies, chemistry, some of our entry engineering, as well as math courses are some of those large lecture halls that traditionally have those Common Hour exams. So that may be something to encourage your students to look at on their course syllabus, especially for this fall semester. The university grading system. So you'll see here an example of one of our students who is demonstrating an excellent academic semester, having earned all A's. The first A that you see is the A for a midterm, and then the second one that you see is the final exams. So luckily our students can see at midterm how they're progressing and then also how they finish the course. The university uses a traditional 4.0 scale for majority of its majors, with the exception of one in landscape architecture. But with our letter grades, they run from A, B, C, D, E, and F. You may have heard E, and unfortunately, E does not stand for excellent. E is also a placeholder for a course in which a student may have failed. We do have some courses offered as a pass-fail option. And so a P for pass is awarded and an F for fail is awarded. So to kind of distinguish between a course taken for letter grade versus pass-fail, that E steps in place of it. There's also on our transcripts where you may see a student with an incomplete or an I, a W, meaning withdrawing from the course, or A, an audit, where the student took the course without course credit. And also, we want to provide you an example of what a course transcript would look like. The course transcript that you see here actually outlines all the schools previously attended, any transfer credits that have been taken and submitted to the university, and you'll also see an outline semester by semester of each course, name of course, grade, hours earned, and credits earned. There's also a note that the semester GPAs as well as the cumulative GPAs are also listed. A student can access their unofficial transcripts at any time through their MyUK portal. So again, that MyUK portal is going to be a very hot place, very important place for the student to visit throughout their career. Jamie, would you like to talk more about the major change process?
Sure. So major changes, oftentimes students will come to university with their mindset on one major and then be interested in another, or they may hear a friend talking about something else. And so it's very important that students realize that they can definitely change their major here at the university unless, of course, they are receiving any kind of financial aid or any kind of program that requires them to have a specific major. But students are eligible to change their major to whatever they'd like at the university. Now, some colleges and majors require students to have an application process, and some have their own selection process. And so being sure that students are checking with that first. But however, I always encourage a student before they even change their major to something else, that they always check with their academic advisor. It's very important that a student checks with their academic advisor, because for that they will be able to kind of tell them, hey, this is the person that you should be talking to. This is the person that you maybe want to reach out with to have that conversation prior to going over. This is someone that you may want to discuss what this may look like if you were to change your major in this juncture of time. And so what does that look like in regards to your graduation date? Will there be additional courses and all that good stuff? So that's one thing that students want to do. I also encourage students to follow up with that other advisor in the college or the person that they were appointed to. It's very helpful, especially if there's an application process that students need to be aware of in regards to special dates and information that need to be completed prior to their application being submitted for a selective admissions major. Also, depending on the time of year for a student, students may be prohibited from changing their major. As I mentioned earlier, there may be a time, and so that time would be listed in the academic calendar. Students will see that they cannot change their major between a certain period of time, and that is a university policy. And that's to help us essentially really advise all the students that are currently in their majors and get everyone taken care of and getting everyone the schedule for the next semester. Now, after that, students will still be able to change their majors and maybe make adjustments to their schedule throughout the rest of their registration window time. But there's a particular time at the university where all that's halted, just to kind of clean up the data on the back end. Also, students should keep in mind some majors, as I mentioned, are selective admissions. And so some of them may require students to do additional work, such as background checks, screenings. They may have a fee, things like that. And so some students may even have to take their ACT again, just to prove they have a score to meet a certain threshold. So that's something to also think about as a student thinks about potentially changing their major, regardless of the time in which they're changing their major or how long they've been at the university. Some other academic resources that we have at the university, some of the academic resources we have at the university, are academic coaching, disability resource centers. So specifically, if a student has a documented disability or maybe even an undocumented disability and want to know about how to go about getting some support in that and getting a diagnosis, the Disability Resource Center is a great resource on campus to make sure they have someone advocating for them and getting them in a situation where they can be set up to be successful, regardless of physical, mental, or invisible elements to the untrained eye. Also, we have tutoring at the study, which is a peer tutoring resource. And so students are encouraged to visit there. It's completely free. All of these resources are free. There is nothing that costs anything at this moment to go visit any of these resources. So just wanna make sure folks are aware of that. The Math Scaler is where typically you will find faculty and staff, as well as grad students and maybe even TAs in there teaching, as well as offering support in the area of mathematics and physics. And some physics, I'll say, some physics. And then you have the general chemistry learning lab, which is typically staffed by peers as well as full-time faculty members who are faculty members in the chemistry department who have maybe even taught your students. So your student, it wouldn't be alarming if a student went in there and they saw their chemistry professor actually in there pulling office hours. And so the same goes for the biology learning center as well. Tau Beta Pi is a tutoring service that's typically geared to students in the engineering college. And so they focus on specifically those courses that are in the engineering curriculum, such as materials, such as thermodynamics and things of that nature. And similar to being college specific, the LEAP lab, so Lab for Economics and Accounting Proficiency. So that is housed in our college, in our Gatton College of Business and Economics. And that's where students can go to get assistance with those topics, specifically in economics and accounting. And then we have CARES, which is a Center for Academic Enrichment Services. So they offer a host of resources on this campus, as well as a lot of support in regards to academics and personal. They have a team of advisors and support staff there to assist students, and they also have staff learning specialists as well that can help diagnose what a student may need or help with their assistance with getting their assistance here at the university if the student knows what they need. And Student Support Services is a federally grant funded TRIO program. And so in order for you to go to Student Support Services, you have to meet one of the three criteria. The three criterion are: have a documented disability, be first generation, meaning that neither parent or guardian has a 4-year degree. And then the last is the low SES or low economic status. And so coming from a lower income home, it has to be documented on the FAFSA form in order to apply and be accepted. Student Support Services is the only office at this time on this list that requires you to apply for their services, because they have a limited number of students that can serve based on the grant fund. So that's something to make note of, but definitely they are a great bunch of folks over there. They also have a learning specialist as well as offering tutorial services in addition to. So some additional tips to help your students study as they prepare for their first round of exams or throughout their transition here at the university and what those exams may look like. Definitely encouraging students to organize their notes and materials. So sometimes it's not uncommon for students to run into issues organizing things, because they may have been taking notes like a mad person and writing down everything the teacher said or the instructor or their TA said, and now it comes time to prepare for the exam and they don't know where to start. So definitely encouraging students to organize their materials prior to, or at least on a weekly basis, so they can keep track and know what the material they covered, when they covered it, and how to go about preparing for their study guides themselves. Also, purchasing a planner. If a student uses a planner, definitely tell them to keep that going, especially if it's been successful for them here in the past, especially in the K-12 system. So definitely students will find themselves needing to figure out time management skills when we get to the university. I reflect on my own experience, and it was definitely a change from K-12. When I came from high school, I also was working a part-time job. And so I was like, oh, it won't be a problem. I can be busy and also keep my mind on things. No, when you get to college, it's a different beast. So I definitely encourage students to figure out the best method that works for them. And for most of our students, that is purchasing a planner or using an electronic planner or planning service online that will help them keep track of things. Also, definitely encourage students to look at materials prior to class beginning. And so it's very important that students focus on how to prepare their mind before they go into their classes, because a lot of times students don't want to look at any of the material and they want to go in completely cold to the new material. And so that's when you find students writing vigorously all the notes and every single word that the faculty member said. Knowing how the college courses are set up here at the university, a lot of the main topics will be covered based on the lecture from the faculty member. And the faculty member will expect students to be prepared. And so what that means is the student may be called on to answer a question. And so if the student hadn't even looked at the textbook or hadn't looked at the notes prior to coming to class and has no idea what's going on, it can be a little bit embarrassing. So definitely encourage students to at least look over their notes prior to, or at least the course materials that will be covered. Also, definitely using and utilizing a student's instructor's office hours for a student. So what that looks like is that's time allotted for the faculty member to meet with students one-on-one or in small groups, depending upon how busy and how many students they have. Typically, it's for students to come by and drop in and ask any questions about material, past exams, things like that. So those are typically listed in the student's syllabus for a course, which is their learning contract with that course and that instructor. So definitely tell students to check those out to determine when those are. And a lot of times, if there is not a time that's convenient for the student to meet with their faculty member, sometimes they may be able to set up an appointment to meet with their instructor in place of the office hours. Also, definitely encourage students to ask as many questions as they like. Definitely some students struggle with that because they may be in a course where it's a large lecture hall and there are a lot of students in the class, and they don't want to be embarrassed and they don't want to, carry on that stigma of that they don't know anything and that they shouldn't be here. And that's not the case. Everyone has some questions about something, and I think it's very brave when students ask those questions in class because they'll definitely help colleagues in that course with them. So definitely encouraging students to ask questions, especially to gather understanding of the material, especially if it's going to be on the test or around test time. Definitely do not encourage your student to cram for an exam. A lot of times students they're learning essentially 4 weeks of material at a time. And so to try and cram all that in and get prepared for an exam is going to cause them a lot of undue stress and things that they don't necessarily need to kind of encounter. So I definitely encourage students to think about potential ways to either plan out study time throughout the weeks and figuring out study times, especially as they're thinking about a full-time schedule, and that's typically between 12 hours and 15 to 17 to 19 hours, depending upon what kind of major the student's in. So definitely encourage students to think about that as they prepare. Also, I'll encourage students to be open to new styles of study environments. And so students may have been the type of person that they needed music to study and they can't go to the library, or they have to have quiet and things like that. So now's the time to really kind of figure out what works for you, especially for our students who have not had to really study a lot and could have been a little bit more light in the studying in their prior academic endeavors. And so now is the time where students are going to really have to buckle down and determine what's going to work best for them. And so students may find themselves in the library or in study groups, or in private quiet study in the library. And so that's definitely something that students want to think about as well as they prepare. So at this time, that's all we have for you, and we encourage you to think back and rewatch this video. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can contact us at FIRST generation at uky.edu. That'll go to me and the other advisors in the area, including Dr. Martin for the First Gen Advising Office, and we can definitely kind of go over any of this material that was discussed in this. Also, we encourage you to, like I said, rewatch this video if there's something that we discussed and you missed it. Please definitely go back and reach out and rewatch this video. That way you can support your student, because it's not just you, it's not just your student going to the University of Kentucky, it's also you. And so we want you to be equipped to help your student as well here, and we're all a team. So Dr. Martin, any more words from you?
Just want to thank you for joining us, and also don't forget to visit the Parent and Family Association's resource webpage for more information, and also to check out some of our other awesome family follow-up videos as well. Thanks. Yes. Until next time.
All right. Bye-bye.